The Detroit Lions should move off of Jared Goff. And that might sound like I'm trying to create a hot take. That might sound like I'm saying Jared Goff is trash or that he's the reason they missed the playoffs this year. But that's not it, because I don't believe any of those things to be true. Jared Goff is undoubtedly a good quarterback. Just look at the numbers he's put up as a Lion. And especially the last 2 years, they have been MVP caliber numbers. And he was not the issue with the Lions this year. It was the insane amount of defensive injuries with the Lions, the offensive line regressing, and the play calling being inconsistent, going from Ben Johnson to John Morton and Dan Campbell, okay? The problem with Jared Goff is he's not capable of overcoming those things. There's certain quarterbacks that when they aren't surrounded by perfect things, that when it's not perfect around them, they still find ways to win. Those are the quarterbacks we see winning Super Bowls most of the time. Your Tom Brady's, your Peyton Manning's, your Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, those type of guys. Even guys in today's NFL like Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson, who haven't won Super Bowls yet, but they've proven they don't need the perfect environment around them to win at a high level, okay? That's what Jared Goff has needed his whole career. And the Detroit Lions need to realize what the Los Angeles Rams realized about a half decade ago. Jared Goff is not getting you over the top. Jared Goff is not winning you a Super Bowl. And if you're not winning the Super Bowl or in the business of winning Super Bowls, you're running your organization wrong. So where Jared Goff is not the problem in Detroit, I still think they should move on. And I have my replacement for him later. So stay tuned for that. But if they don't move on, I think it's clear the Detroit Lions have missed their Super Bowl window. Joe, what's your reaction to what I just said about Jared Goff? And do you think the Detroit Lions have missed their Super Bowl window?
I don't think missed, but it's closing rapidly. I think that you have to figure out what is going on with these injuries, because this is 2 years in a row that you were a division favorite, Super Bowl contender at the beginning of the year, and half your roster ended up in the hospital. So something's got to change, and it's got to change fast. I don't know if it's the turf. I don't know if it's the conditioning program. I don't know if Dan Campbell's running them too damn hard or what's going on. That's problem number one. Problem number two, you got to solve your offensive line. They aged out. You got some guys contemplating retirement. And, you see what happens in Jared Goff. Jared Goff and Sam Darnold are not so different. I think the biggest difference realistically is Sam Darnold's a little more adept with his legs than Jared Goff is. But when you have a poor offensive line, you can't give Jared Goff and Sam Darnold time, they crumble. Everyone's like, all quarterbacks can get pressure crumble. Yeah, some of them don't. Some of them rise to the occasion. Jared Goff is not that guy. I think that he crumbles and it's over. And it's just, it falls apart for him. And the offensive line wasn't good enough this year. You combine that with some head-scratching play calling on offense, and that's a problem. So you have to figure out what your offensive coordinator situation looks like. Good news. Jonathan Gannon, who just got fired, might be an option if you want to probably bring him in there. Maybe, I don't know. He seemed to have that offense going with Jacoby Brissett, or the offensive coordinator, because that head coaching system is going to be there. Grab that guy, because he got Jacoby Brissett on offense to work. I mean, find something. I don't think Jared Goff is the kind of guy who's going to win you a Super Bowl. Like when you looked at that Rams team, it was never the offense that you were concerned about. You're like, that defense got Aaron Donald. Jared Goff just was the Rex Grossman of the Rams, right? He was the Rex Grossman to the Bears with Jared Goff for the Rams in that. Don't get me wrong. The guy can throw yards. He can put up points. You know what I mean? Like Kirk Cousins with the Vikings did that for years. And the big question you have right now is that you're not going to get a young quarterback. You have to find someone who you think can maximize your window right now. Now, you have some guys on some one-year deals. Sam Darnold, but he's probably going to re-sign in Seattle. Daniel Jones is injured. You don't know what he's going to look like. I mean, there's not a lot of other quarterback options. I don't know if you get better than Jared Goff, and maybe that does mean your Super Bowl window's closed. Because if Jared Goff's the best thing you're going to get under quarterback, I don't know if you can solve that problem.
Well, Joe, I'm happy you said that because I have the solution here, and I was thinking about this. First of all, I want to thank you for changing from Rex Grossman to Kirk Cousins, because Rex Grossman was wild disrespectful. Okay, Rex Grossman was crazy to Jared Goff. Rex Grossman was never.
He got carried.
Yeah,
he got carried.
Well, Jared Goff at least played well. Like Rex Grossman was like literally playing like trash, and then the Bears defense was carrying him to the Super Bowl.
It's the Bears. The Bears have never had a good quarterback.
Exactly. Well, until now, Caleb Williams. But yeah, it took a long time.
Still a 4,000-yard passer.
Yeah, exactly. Still no 4,000-yard passer. But I'm glad that you clarified to Kirk Cousins, because I think Jared Goff, and we talked about this, I don't know if it was on a live or if it was in between episodes. There's like a tier of quarterbacks that it's like most of the time you're really happy they're your quarterback, but there's like 5% of the time, like 2 or 3 games a year. That's more than 5%, but there's like 2 or 3 games a year where you're like, God damn it, like we could do better. And that's like Jared Goff. That's like Brock Purdy to me. That's like Sam Darnold. That's like Dak Prescott. And to me, that's that's what Jared Goff is. And to Lions fans, again, I've been the Lions guy the last 4 years, okay? And I know some of y'all will be like, oh, he's trying to sabotage our franchise. I legitimately want you guys to win a Super Bowl, okay? Lions fans,
Same.
I know you had to deal with being the worst franchise in football for about 30 years or more, okay? So these last 4 years have probably felt like heaven, okay? But just imagine winning a Super Bowl, just one Super Bowl. How would that feel? How much better would that feel than just the last 4 years of being good? So with that in mind, the Lions' next quarterback, I have a couple of options. The number one option, the best option. You do exactly what you did with Matthew Stafford, except this time you get the quarterback upgrade. This time you trade Jared Goff for the quarterback upgrade. You're going to trade Jared Goff, another player, and 2 first-round picks to Cincinnati for Joe Burrow. How do you feel, Joe?
Oh, dear God. Yeah. Sign me up.
Come on.
But I mean, it doesn't solve your offensive line, though. I think that doesn't solve your offensive line.
It definitely does not. It definitely doesn't.
That's an upgrade. That's a massive quarterback upgrade.
You go from having a quarterback where you don't know if he can get you to a Super Bowl to a quarterback who you know can get a worse franchise than this one to a Super Bowl because he's already done it in Joe Burrow. Now, Joe Burrow obviously has the injury concerns. He obviously has the concern of, are you going to actually be able to pry him from Cincinnati? Are the Cincinnati Bengals are actually going to trade him? You'd probably have to give up even more than what I just suggested to get him. But if you can pull that trade off, you go pull it off. Now, the number 2 option I have for him, Joe, there's been a lot of smoke about another AFC quarterback, the one in Baltimore, about Lamar Jackson. Same deal for Lamar Jackson. Again, you bring in Lamar Jackson with that supporting cast. Again, the offensive line isn't as much of a concern because Lamar Jackson can move around and escape some of those sacks that, Joe Burrow and Jared Goff would be taking. But how would you feel about that if Lamar Jackson ended up being a Detroit Lion?
I mean, I'd be interested because Detroit's never had a mobile quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that affects their scheme. I really don't. I'd be interested. I don't know if the fit is right. You'd have to find someone who's adept to having a mobile quarterback and seeing how that affects, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. But I think that you put Lamar Jackson in probably his most talented offense he's ever had, from a wide receiver perspective. With Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams and everyone else they have, and Sam Laporta and everyone else and Tesla who showed he's a 50-50 ball maniac. I mean, I like the fit a little bit. Like I said, I have my qualms with Lamar Jackson. I'm not as sold on his quarterback ability. I think he's a great athlete. But like we've talked about this multiple times. I'm going to say it every time. I'm not sold on his ability to throw the football and sort of elevate in key moments by throwing the football.
Yeah, it would, like you mentioned at the very start, they would definitely have to get an offensive coordinator that could make it work, someone who is used to a mobile quarterback, because Lamar Jackson is not your typical, he's not anything like Joe Burrow or Jared Goff. He's not the sit in the pocket, go 1, 2, 3 in the progression and, make the, read the defense how a normal quarterback does. He has elements of that, but he's not the traditional pocket passer that those guys are. So it would be definitely a different style of offense. But if you could find that coordinator to come in and do it, I think, that could potentially be a nuclear offense with those weapons, with those running backs, and then with Lamar Jackson as well. And then my third option, the second two options are not nearly as good as Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is the option because you can just kind of plug and play him, and he's the better version of Jared Goff. But this version would be, they get you a little bit younger. Okay, so this one you trade Jared Goff, this year's first, and maybe something else as well for the number 2 overall pick to the Jets. And then you call up Oregon, you call up Dante Moore, and you say, hey, we're trading with the Jets, okay? We're going to come pick you. We're going to sign a 1-year bridge, and you're going to sit for a year, and then you're going to start for us in 2027. So they trade Jared Goff, this year's first, and a second-round pick for the number 2 overall pick, where they draft Dante Moore and then sit him for a year. How would you feel about that, Joe?
I really want to know who's starting there. I think that you could make I think that that's a great plan. You go get a guy like Mac Jones. And you say, Mac, you're our bridge for a year.
I was thinking Kirk Cousins too, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe if you can get him away, if you feel that he's the guy. I think that Kirk Cousins, and like I said, Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, you're not really getting anything else there. Obviously, you have to give something up to get something. I think that, Mac, it would be a little more expensive than Kirk, just in general. But yeah, you need to get a bridge at that point, and I think you could easily make the argument that Kirk Cousins is a little more mobile. I think Mac Jones showed that in a good offense, but granted, then you have to get a good offensive scheme. You have to get a good offensive play caller. If you're going to get a quarterback like Mac Jones, I think Kirk Cousins can do a little bit more with less. He's a little more athletic. He got a little more arm talent than Mac Jones does. So yeah, that wouldn't be terrible. We're going to find out how good he is when he goes up against Mendoza and see who really is the best quarterback going into the draft this year. But yeah, as of right now, there's even concerns that Moore doesn't come out this year because he doesn't want to go to the Jets.
Yeah, that would be the main thing, is you had to convince him to come out. But I think Mendoza, if you're wanting somebody to like win now, I think he's the better option. Yeah. But I think Moore could develop into a better quarterback just because he's a little bit more athletic, and I think he's got a little bit more tools in his bag as far as arm angles and stuff like that go. But again, I can almost guarantee you Detroit Lion fans are not going to like this discussion. I can almost guarantee you they're going to be mad about this discussion because I know how beloved Jared Goff is in Detroit, and I know how well that he's played in Detroit. I'm simply, again, I want the Lions to have success. Detroit is basically like my NFC team, and I think if the Detroit Lions want to not miss their Super Bowl window and want to keep the level of talent on this team, I think they have to get a quarterback that's capable of taking them there, and I simply don't believe that's Jared Goff right now.
This has been Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details.